have a simpler question for you, Mr. Minister Emmanuel. What is the status of the search for a new director for the cadastre?
I think that's a question more that the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister probably would, not that they're responsible for it, but I think I came in meeting a situation that was there. And to be honest, I haven't had a discussion concerning cadastre of finding a new director. As a member of parliament, I've promoted that the present acting director should be promoted to the director, whether it's training or whatever is necessary for her to get up to speed. But again, here's the thing. Yeah, these sort of questions comes as if a minister can just simply go and pluck someone and say, you're director. It doesn't work like that. The Prime Minister walks into my office every day. Minister, what's happening? What is going on? Give me an update. Because I have to have a discussion with my colleagues. Prime Minister, this is what I'm thinking. This is along the line I want to go. Minister of Finance, listen, I just don't have enough money. Tell me something. How can this work? Minister of Justice, listen, I'm having a problem with the road here and the parking. They're up on the sidewalk. Tell me where we can go, because I need the guys from the police to go out and give some fines. We removed the billards on Back Street, and now they're parking on the sidewalk. It's a discussion that have to be taken with a council of ministers. I can suggest a name, but to say that I'm well versed and in depth and know what is happening with cadastre, no, I don't, because I haven't delved into it really to find out what is going on. I'm concentrating on housing, on GB, on garbage, on roads. I will get to it, but I think the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance is more suitable to answer that question.
Thank you, Minister Emmanuel. Prime Minister would like to add to this discussion.
Yes, thanks. I think the question is a very legitimate question. The reason why I believe the minister has not been able to give a direct answer, so to speak, on it. The minister came in and met if I would say, something in movement. Cadastre, and then I'm going back to the past for us to understand where we are at today. Cadastre falls under the responsibility of the Minister of Finance. For several years now, government was behaving as if cadastre was the responsibility of the ministry or the commissioner of VROMI. Officially, it falls under the responsibility of finance. So work was in progress in that transition. That's when the minister came in, believing that cadastre is his responsibility. The Minister of Finance, whose responsibility it is, did not have, not the person, but the ministry did not assume responsibility for it, but legally the transfer, let's say the switch over, had never taken place. What you do have sometimes is that even if I am responsible as minister for a certain area, I would ask the Minister of Justice or the Minister of Finance to take charge and clear that up, deal with that for me. Sometimes you would hear one minister speaking. If we take, for instance, the example of the starting of the law program, it is something very close to the heart of Minister Gibson, and he picked up the ball and he was, let's say, running with it with the knowledge, approval of the government and of the Ministry of Finance. Education. Here, however, you have that gray area where for several years the Minister of VROMI was taking the decisions, taking the lead, leading the discussions with cadastre, while actually cadastre falls under the responsibility of finance. So in that discussion, at a given moment, it was decided, well, hey, maybe it's best not to continue with that transition and park it back up or leave it where it belongs. And so therefore, I guess, is the reason why the minister said maybe the minister, the prime minister or the minister of finance. But for what I know, I do not believe that even within the Ministry of Finance, there's a process ongoing today to recruit a new head of cadastre anytime soon. One would say, well, this sounds like a bundle of excuses, one after the other, over certain things. But just yesterday, following the Council of Ministers, we were having a discussion with 2-3 ministers who were left behind. And the amount of priorities that government has, and it was put also in the context of the Integrity Chamber and all the discussions that are taking place with the Netherlands. If a member of the media or a member of the society or a member of the Dutch government or the Kingdom government decides to target something and make that their priority, and therefore questions are being asked and we are not getting sufficient answers fast enough, the impression would be created like, gee whiz, what it is they're doing. We have a list of legislation that has to be finalized internally by government. We have our department that has to vet them. So even if we give them to an external bureau to do, sometimes we do that, you outsource it, but when the final legislation comes, before it can go to the Council of Ministers, our Legal Affairs Department has to vet it based on certain criteria. If they are given a department with 3 people in it, if they are given 30 pieces of legislation to go through, and with all of them, priority and high priority and highest priority, at a given moment, no matter how you turn, twist, or put them, all become priority, and which one do you handle first? While you're busy with this one, you might get a call from the Minister of Finance, hey, this is priority, we need it, we need to go to Parliament. When it's finished there, it has to go to the SER, it has to go to the Council of Advice, and then it ends up in Parliament, the back and forth discussion. So at a given moment, one can have an intention to do 100 things. One will be done first, one will be done second, but one of those priorities will be number 100. And while you probably reach down to 36, 37, or 40, new priorities may be added, so that one will remain at the bottom at a given moment, and then somebody who might have a vested interest in a particular area might say, but gee whiz, I mean, they do nothing about that yet. But it is because they have so much more on their plate to do. One of the things that I just mentioned is, the Integrity Chamber. Priority for this government, not in the manner that some would want to see it. And I continue to emphasize every opportunity I get, integrity issues, integrity breaches, an integrity chamber or integrity legislation is important to this government. One of the discussions we've had during the Council of Ministers meeting yesterday and spilled over in sort of a roundtable after we adjourned the meeting was exactly on the issue of integrity breaches, let's say within the organization, that you need to stop. And what some of it is, bad habits that had been developed, that people thought it was okay to do, that people thought it was fine to do. And we are saying, no, it is not. But do you stop it all in one day? Do you stop it by passing legislation? Do you stop it by having an integrity chamber on paper that looks like, now we are going to deal with it? No, it does not necessarily stop there. It's an ongoing discussion. One of the things that I've been speaking about, for instance, when you put everything in the big context, the Minister of Public Health, talks NHI, dreams NHI, sleeps NHI. Sometimes I think he wakes up in the middle of the night and sees NHI on the wall because of how important it is. But one of the things that I've said publicly all the time, NHI, to get to a national health insurance took Holland 23 years, I think it was, okay? A rich country, a country that has, just last year, I think, some 2 billion surplus on their budget, okay? We are struggling to balance a budget and then to keep it balanced. And the same country, as part of the kingdom, using their authority, their powers, to squeeze us and insist that if we don't get NHI in place by the 31st of December, all hell gonna broke loose, because then you won't be able to borrow, you won't be able to do this, you won't be able to, but we gotta develop this country. We gotta take care of all of those needs that are out there to be taken care of. When we switch on CNN, or we switch on MSNBC, whichever US station you switch on to, what is one of the discussions that the president, in his latest attempt, threw his hand up in the air and said, well, leave Obamacare crash, and then they're going to come running. But is there a solution that everybody feels happy about? No. The wealthiest country in the world can't get it right. But a country that is 7 years old is basically being instructed that if you don't get it right by the 31st of December, because we've been waiting too long, we're 7 years old, but we've been waiting too long. Took us 23, but if you don't get it right by the 31st of December, we're going to have some serious issues there. And not issues that you're going to say, well, then we're going to have issues with healthcare. We're going to use the issue of healthcare to punish you in other areas that you won't be able to function. Now, how do I see the integrity issue or the integrity chamber as well? Yes, this afternoon I'm discussing the final draft. I said in Parliament that the draft would be sent to the Council of Ministers soon. I hope to have it in the Council of Ministers on the agenda for this Tuesday. The time that it's taking us to deal with such an issue, that is not an issue that if we don't deal with it today, the country will be bankrupt tomorrow, or people will be dropping down in the street because, you know, it's like a toxic waste that is there ready to explode. So we need to get our priorities right in this country, and the people to get it right is the country and not external forces that has to decide what is a priority for St. Martin, and when St. Martin got to get this ready, and when St. Martin got to get that ready. And this is the battle that I'm fighting in this. We just came back from Washington with the pre-clearance. That is a priority for us, because that is going to help St. Martin move to the next level. The discussions that we're having about the Pearl of China, because it's China, it rings one bell in certain ears, but getting our economy moving, getting investors to put money into this country, getting our people at work, these are things that are important and necessary to this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Lyndon Brown, the floor is yours.
Mr. Lee, question. Any person who do not have legal status, do they have right to obtain a director's license?
Any person who does not have legal status, and anyone can apply for a director's license. So if someone wants to, I assume you mean if somebody wants to open their own company and get a business license and then apply for the director's position? Is that what you're referring to? So first of all, that's something that would happen under the Ministry of TIAT. And it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, PM, that once the person applies for and is granted the director's license, they're entitled then to a residence permit, but perhaps you can help me to clarify that.
In baseball, they call it the utility player. Um, no, I missed it because I was reading a message. I think Mr. Brown asked if somebody is illegal, if they can get a director's license. That is what you asked?
If someone's illegal, if they don't have legal status, can they get a director's license?
So if somebody who is living here undocumented requests a director's license for a company. Now, I'm not passing the buck, but I'm looking at my minister because I don't grant neither director's license in economic affairs, neither do I grant residence permits. But you get into the fish and the fowl kind of thing. A company is established, or somebody, what we have noticed, and it's a discussion that I've started, and forgive me again for telling a long story, but long stories are necessary sometimes for people to understand the history of something. Several years ago, what companies used to do, they used to request to establish a company, and that company would have as objective to buy cars, sell cars, have a grocery store, have a casino, have a restaurant, have a car wash, have a clothing store, have a jewelry store, have. I'm not telling lies. This is how it used to be. Companies with 10, 12 objectives. The holder of that company would then, when Harry wants a restaurant license, they don't request it. They go to that company, to that director, and say, can we use your license to operate our restaurant? Peter goes and he gets to use that same license to operate the clothing store, etc., etc. When we discovered these things were happening, we blocked it. We stopped it. We said, no, you got to have one main objective. The other thing companies started doing, requesting directors' licenses. Once you have, let's say, a supermarket, if you do your paper trail properly, you'll realize one supermarket requested directors' licenses for 10 different directors. One jewelry store on Front Street would have 6 directors for a jewelry store that employ 5 people or employ 6 people. So if you do the math, you will realize all the persons working as salesmen are directors because they requested a director's license. Why do they do that? To circumvent certain rules and regulations. What have we discovered lately now is that with the assistance of one of the notary companies, people are establishing companies, young, let's call them immigrants from surrounding islands. They form companies, and once that company is incorporated by the notary and registered by the chamber, then they come and ask for a director's license. Who the director's license is for? It is for John Doe, who is probably working undocumented on St. Martin for an electrical company or for a construction company, but to legalize his or her status, they're then asking for a director's license. So if the person then goes to Anguilla, even though they're undocumented in St. Martin, they move out, gone to Anguilla, maybe they're going to go sleep in French Quarter. Then they say, no, the person doesn't live here. The person wants a director's license because he incorporates a company, and Economic Affairs give them a company for a car rental. So Economic Affairs give them a company, director, allow them to have a company to operate an electrical company or a painting company. So if they're always one step ahead of you, and whenever you find what they say the loophole and you try to close it, they find the next one again, and the whole relationship, French, Dutch. If you're from the French side, you can have an account in dollars on the Dutch side and don't pay the 1%. If you're a local resident and you have an account, you got to pay the 1%. So some people put the account in their girlfriend name or the boyfriend name or the aunt name to avoid the 1%, but on the other hand, you run a risk because if something goes sour, they clean you out and they're gone. So this is the story that we keep coming across. Now, you can say you can't remember the question and you don't know what the answer is because the Prime Minister confused you, but I hope I gave you an idea of what is taking place and that what may have prompted your answer.
Hi, I'm Giuliani Roberts.
And I'm Omar Phillips, students of the BOP program.
Join us for a special edition of Inside Government highlighting the Business Outreach and Placement Program.
August 11th on this channel.
Family law, criminal law, labor law, corporate law, immigration law, electoral law, tax law, environmental law, inheritance law. The law matters to you. A joint venture between the Department of Communication and the University of St. Martin. The lecture series, The Law Matters to You, is aimed at informing and providing the general public of St. Martin about the different laws. We invite you to visit the official government website at www.stmartingov.org for details on upcoming lectures. The law matters to you, bringing the law closer to the people.
Minister Emmanuel, on another project of yours, or project you're involved with, the houses that are supposed to come in Defiance Haven, Don Beach area. Any update on that?
The Prime Minister walked into my office, I believe, on Monday, I think it was, and he said, listen, boo, I want to put on a hard hat and some boots and start to break ground. So I'll tell you this, and I told the Prime Minister very soon he'll be able to put on a hard hat and some boots and start to break ground. Again, you know, like I said, I've learned my lesson from releasing information a bit too early without having numbers and without supporting those numbers. But things are moving, Alita, and very soon we'll be seeing things happening.
Thank you, Alita. Andrew?
Minister Boschman, on the AFPAC team, the Parliament meeting was postponed until further notice. Is there any plans for the AFPAC team to continue in the meantime, or are you still going to wait until after the parliamentary talks are completed?
No, the meeting is ongoing. The information in the sessions in Parliament, the ministry answered all of the questions and gave the necessary information. Like I said before, I respect the position of Parliament. It is not that Parliament has to approve anything, but there has to be clarity. Parliament represents the people, so if there is any issues that are not clear among the people, the constituents of Parliament, they would approach their member of Parliament, and as such you would get a meeting going where the minister could be called to answer the question. This government stands for openness and transparency, and I have no problem on waiting, on finalizing that process and make sure that Parliament, in so doing, the people properly informed as to what the intention of the AFPAC team is. So that's where we are at right now.
So it's still on hold?
Sorry?
It's still on hold. That's what I'm asking you.
I'm waiting to finalize the process in Parliament, yes.
Thank you, Andrew. Bibi, you have the floor before I close the floor for
Thank you,
any
Marsha.
further questions.
Minister Emmanuel, my question just now, I didn't ask you to comment on the statements or the media outrage. What I ask you is there a situation going on within the management team of GEBE that sparked this?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I don't know.
Hi, I'm Giuliani Roberts.
And I'm Omar Phillips, students of the BOP program.
Join us for a special edition of Inside Government where we will be speaking to Honorable Minister Silveria Jacobs.
August 18th on this channel.